Well, business is all about the bottom line, right? We're going to look at business in New York City, doing business in New York City to be exact. So smaller business is beautiful. Over 90% of businesses in New York's metropolitan area have fewer than 20 employees. And small business, in fact, sparks employment growth at a time when many large employers have been treading water. In fact, businesses with fewer than 50 employees had a net gain of 126,000 jobs between 2000 and 2013, while businesses with more than 500 employees had a net loss of some 5,000 jobs. That shows you where the action is. So looking at really small businesses, over the last 13 years, the bulk of the growth in new business in New York City has been led primarily by firms with fewer than 5 employees. In fact, in 2013, some 66% of the city's private sector businesses had fewer than 5 employees, and that's up from 65% in 2008 and 63.9% in the year 2000. Now, these micro businesses now make up more than roughly 2/3 of the city's companies, and between 2000 and 2013 accounted for some 82% of all growth in new business. We have another view here. Are you hiring? While the number of tech startups that have experienced meteoric growth, the vast majority of small businesses in the city never really get to expand in a meaningful way. Now, there are a lot of bars to that expansion that we're going to talk about with our guest, but we should let you know that in just if one-third of the city's 165,000 micro businesses added just one more employee, that would mean net-wide 55,000 jobs would be added to the city. So that's a lot of jobs and a lot of business out there. So now we'll get into doing business in New York City after the A Block.
So along with quite a few obstacles to growth, the New York metropolitan area has distinct advantages for small business owners. A broad pool of talent to pull from, for example, and of course, a huge number of potential customers. But one of the biggest markets in the world needs to do better by its entrepreneurs. How can the city help more of them not just get their companies off the ground, but turn them into bigger companies? Here to guide us on what should be done and how are Jonathan Bowles, Executive Director of the Center for an Urban Future. Welcome back to BK Live.
Great to be here.
And also welcome back to an old friend of BRIC TV, Randy Piers, CEO of Opportunities for a Better Tomorrow. Welcome, Randy.
Thanks for having me.
You and I hadn't been personally acquainted yet, but I hear you are a very good old friend of BRIC TV, and so I am honored.
What do we mean by old?
Not that kind of old.
Best kind.
We've known each other for a while here. So thank you for being back with us.
Thanks for having me.
So it seems like there are a lot of the small businesses, right? But then there are these micro and small ones that, even though they're coming into existence, they're not growing, right? And that's what we want them to do. So what are some of these? We heard a little bit from Brian, but what are some of these major barriers that keep them from getting that one extra employee or 2 or 3 that would make them grow and really be able to sustain more of the city?
Well, you're absolutely right. We're in this entrepreneurial age. More than ever, this is a small business economy for New York City. But the trick is, how do we get more of our great small businesses to grow into medium-sized and large businesses? And these entrepreneurs face huge hurdles. I mean, just the competition here. You know, small businesses have very low profit margins oftentimes, but they're facing intense competition because so many entrepreneurs are starting up in the city. There's a lot of crowding in the space, and so just getting business is really important. And so, that's one thing. Small businesses need business. They need customers. And sometimes getting access to those customers can be a challenge. So we've talked about how can more of them get access to technology as a way to boost their opportunities, their markets? How can they get access to export opportunities? Some of the great small businesses, small manufacturers that we're seeing all across Brooklyn, one way to get more of them to grow is have them export beyond Brooklyn, beyond New York City. So those are a couple of things, but obviously space, utilities, healthcare, so many costs are really through the roof in this city. And that's why, we need to really double down on making sure that our entrepreneurs and small businesses are really boosting their bottom line, because those costs aren't really going anywhere.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, Randy, at Opportunities for a Better Tomorrow, you guys prepared the workforce for these jobs that we're hoping are going to be developed. Is too much attention, or what's the balance being paid to getting folks ready for these jobs versus making sure that businesses can expand and work in an environment that's good for them?
So one of the beauties of small business here in New York City is the fact that they tend to hire locally. Right, for a lot of reasons. A lot of them are rooted in a community, in a neighborhood. A lot of them feel that they're part of that community. They want to support that community. And let's also face it, they can't compete necessarily for talent because, as Jonathan said, their profit margins are low, right? So in terms of wages, in terms of benefits and so forth, they're more likely to turn to programs like ours. In particular, we work with young adults, right, the 17 to 24 demographic. So we think this growth in small business does represent a great opportunity for these companies to kind of consider and hire, locally, and that's what we kind of sort of work on. What do the small business owners want? They don't necessarily need somebody with a college degree. They don't necessarily need somebody with 12 or 13 different certifications, and they don't necessarily need somebody who has tons of years of experience in their industry. They will actually train on the job. What they do need is somebody who's going to get up and come to work every day, be on time, be reliable, and be responsible. So one of the things that we really do focus on is those soft skills. But beyond the soft skills, we also look at things like, critical thinking skills, conflict resolution, the ability to handle customers, right? I mean, sometimes this person is in the front line at a new coffee bar, and they're the person that's going to bring in the customers or turn away the customers. So these are the things that we like to concentrate on, and these are the ways we think we can help those small businesses to grow.
Yeah. Right, absolutely. Well, you mentioned a couple of times, Jonathan, the technological aspect, right? So not being necessarily there yet. What are some of these new initiatives or ideas to get them, so not just the customer service aspect, but getting them that marketing, that technology in?
Right. Well, it's a lot of things, and I think that we're seeing more small businesses adopt technology, but the good thing is that it's not just like having a website. For some businesses, that's what they need. More and more small businesses are going in that route, but for others, it's like, we see all these bodegas in New York City. Many of them are facing huge competitions with the 7-Elevens, with the big drugstores, the Duane Reeds, the Rite Aids, and many of them are kind of competing with one hand tied behind their back because they're not using inventory tracking systems today. The other big guys are, and so getting that kind of technology can be helpful for that kind of small business. For others, it's like getting access to Google ads, Facebook ads, getting savvy about how they can reach customers in this age. You've got to boost the bottom line. You've got to find new ways to bring in customers, and technology can really help with that. Sometimes it's social media, other things.
So looking at that landscape, and you brought up the bodegas, which have been, that's a stalwart. It's been in the community and like forever, and we may be in danger of losing a lot of them because of shifting demographics and rents just going up. But what about people who are small businesses, who a lot of these are women run or immigrants or people who are new, and they have different sets of concerns than folks who want to expand their business in other ways? Are there special sort of dispensations or programs designed at reaching those communities?
Well, first of all, the de Blasio administration has this really great We NYC initiative that's targeted at women entrepreneurs right now. We're seeing huge growth in women entrepreneurs in this city, about 4 times faster growth in women-owned businesses than male-owned businesses in the last 5 years. But I think that when we talk about the small business programs that are out there, and there's some good ones in New York City, it's really about making sure that there's an effort to reach into the communities, because there's some great microfinance organizations, community-based organizations, local development corporations, and often those are the organizations that, when it comes to providing the technical assistance that small businesses need, the hand-holding to get access to microloans, to get access to help on accessing technology or doing things to access supply chain opportunities or government contracts, sometimes those businesses are not going to government offices, and you really need to partner with the great community-based organizations that we have, and we could do more of that as a city.
Yeah, I agree. I think that that's a strength, even the business improvement districts, right? And especially when it comes to some of the immigrant-based businesses, just for them, just breaking out of their own ethnic community is an important sort of next step consideration. And to do that, they really just need some relationships, in other markets. And, the chambers of commerce, the local development corporations, the bids can help facilitate that and bring different people together and look at some of those business-to-business opportunities.
So what makes someone marketable now in this, especially if we're looking at micro businesses and walking into a firm that has like 5 employees? How do you make yourself an asset that would make someone say, maybe we need 6 people here?
Yeah, I mean, I think it gets back to those soft skills, the hard work. You know, the more you can show that you're a reliable, dedicated person who's willing to learn new things, then I think ultimately, you know, any business owner sees value in that. I'll just quickly touch upon the social media aspect. I mean, one of the things that our young adults have an advantage going in the door is that they know social media. Yeah. They know it really, really well. And sometimes some of the business owners aren't as savvy when it comes to social media. So that's one way right off the bat that there's a value proposition there that they could sort of market and say, hey, look, you're not engaged in social media. You don't have a Facebook page. You know, you're not marketing yourself to a whole other demographic, and we can help you do that.
Right. I had that thought as soon as you mentioned kind of the age of the workforce. I was like, oh, they probably know a lot more about that stuff and can help market in that way.
That's right.
It goes away. That's all I know.
I've aged out of the demo. I don't know what is a Snapchat. I really don't know. So look, we hear so much about these startup economies and this little tech corridor triangle that Brooklyn has, but where's the heat? Where else are things happening and where are jobs to be had?
Well, what's really exciting is that it's really all over the place. I mean, Brooklyn is seeing an entrepreneurial economy boom in every corner of the borough. You know, I think that the last time we took a close look at Brooklyn, I mean, for instance, Sheepshead Bay was off the charts in entrepreneurship and small business growth. Sunset Park, you know, there was, you know, tremendous bursts of entrepreneurship and small business.
And the nonprofits, I remember Adam was here and talked about nonprofit growth.
Yeah, well, I mean, the creative, the arts nonprofits, that we've seen tremendous growth there, but also a lot of the creative businesses, design companies. You know, we just did a report a couple weeks ago showing that Brooklyn is seeing the fastest growth in the city when it comes to design companies and architectural firms, and a lot of them are very small companies as well. So, you know, Brooklyn has that creative core. It's got that talent base there, and a lot of them are starting businesses today. And it's not just in the 2 or 3 neighborhoods that get the most attention. It's really happening all over.
Wow. That's so awesome. I just love that about being here, is that there's so many different businesses, like, and they'll all be in one actual space together, right? So there's a lot of the office space renting where people get together, and all these different minds, are just in one little area. I toured one of
the WeWork facilities the other day, and it's pretty amazing to have so many different entrepreneurs, and not just entrepreneurs, but they actually now they're catering some of their facilities for that next phase of development. So when that entrepreneur moves to that 5-person space and then beyond, so it's really becoming a hub for that type of co-working.
I think we've also seen now, in part because there's so many low-wage jobs out there, a lot of people stuck without an opportunity to advance to the middle class, that I think a lot of people have turned to entrepreneurship as just a pathway for economic self-sufficiency, a lot of low-income people. And I think we need to figure out how do we take that and really help more of those kind of side hustles, those very small-scale businesses, and get them to be more established and get them to grow, because there is this entrepreneurial coolness happening in this borough and in this city. But again, how do we make sure more of those firms survive, and how do we make sure more of them grow into medium-sized businesses? Because frankly, that's when they're going to have better paying jobs. That's when they're going to have more jobs. That's when they're going to be offering more benefits. So that's really the name of the game.
So Randy, do you think there's like a 360 vision for sort of synthesizing workforce development at the same time as economic development? Is there a plan or a model where we can sort of equal?
Sure, we've come a long way, from the Bloomberg administration and now the de Blasio administration, really sort of looking at the larger scale development projects, whether it's through community benefits agreements, whether it's through leveraging the rezoning process, like we are around affordable housing, which is going to open up opportunities in construction, for example. There's very much a focus on sort of marrying those two worlds. I mean, historically, we operated in different silos, but now the reality for my side of the equation, for the workforce side of the equation, is you can't just train people in jobs that don't exist anymore. It's not going to work, and there isn't going to be funding to do that anymore. So there's a lot more accountability also in terms of, on our side, in terms of what are we training people for, and are we really looking at the employment trends long term?
Very cool. Wow, thanks for giving us an update. We'll keep watching and reading your reports. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for joining us.